Okay. Well, obviously, many people in our community are upset and annoyed at the council for constructing a fence on the airfield. That's pretty much it. I would just have to voice the concerns that have been raised with me and share them with the board, and say that as a whole, it feels like the resolutions from our last board meeting were ignored, and the council's just gotten on with it and done it as they have decided to. So just have to let it play out now.
Yeah, thanks for expressing that, Chris. Sounds like you've been talking to a few people, and I imagine the concerns are, you know, it's probably nothing new. I imagine they're all the concerns and the things that have been raised before. Would anyone from council like to speak at all? I mean, I don't see that there was any specific questions, but Rob, do you want to respond to that, or Roger at all, to where, yeah, to Chris?
Yeah, look, if I can just acknowledge your sentiments, Chris. You know, we know there are members of the community who are upset and who are annoyed, yeah, we can understand why that is. In terms of the resolution that you put forward, the council has considered that, and you had the mayor and all councillors meeting with the chair of the community board to talk about that resolution. So I believe that it hasn't been ignored. It has been considered. At the end of the day, the councillors have instructed staff or reconfirmed their desire for the Mike Haynes recommendations to be implemented, and so that's what staff are now doing. But I can understand the sentiments you bring to the meeting, and it is your job to represent various members of the community. We are aware of that, and we are trying to balance all those needs as best we can.
And will the costs be borne by the pilots for all of this new safety improvements plus the ongoing maintenance costs? Because there was a big discrepancy in terms of the money brought in and the money spent on the airfield.
Yeah, look, that's a good question, and look, we've actually had a Lagoima request from, I think it was Raglan 23, in terms of what the monies that the airfield have brought in are, what the revenue is, and so we'll be responding to that shortly, but we can kind of share that information. So we do know that 2021 financial year, there was just under 6,000 worth of fees paid by pilots, and we know that this year we haven't even got to 500 yet. So there is a big shortfall between operation costs and the amount of revenue that we're gaining from pilots. In terms of, are they going to be made to pay the full costs, that would have to be in our fees and charges, and they're already set. And so there isn't at the moment an intention to review or increase those fees. But I think through this process, we've had a very clear steer that there needs to be a careful consideration of benefits and costs. And so that is something that moving forward, we will need to do. In terms of discrepancies in the information we've given you, I guess the first thing to do is to acknowledge there was an error and apologise for that. The information in front of you still isn't 100% correct, and that's not helpful. And so to give you a clearer picture, the mowing cost in that table in front of you is an order of magnitude wrong in terms of, we can tell you it's between 30 and 40,000 for the mowing costs. Now there is commercial confidentiality and sensitivity around the number. That's why I've given you a range. The number in the agenda, we calculated it based on area and some rates, etc. And we just got that one wrong. So I apologise for that. And then in the first version, we actually double counted when we tallied it up. There was a formula issue, and so that wasn't picked up. So look, totally sorry for that. And in terms of the fencing costs, the first version you got, again, we didn't have the exact quote, so we were trying to do it based on the length of the fence, so the per metre rate, and we were actually looking at a different type of fence, a board and rail fence, rather than the type that's going up there now. So there was a big discrepancy between what the design of the fence, the cost of the final fence, and the quote we got from what we initially put in the agenda. And so I suppose as soon as we had more up-to-date information and we identified the areas that occurred, we tried to fix them as soon as we could. As I've said, still not 100% right, that table, in terms of the mowing costs. If we replace that first line with a range between 30 and 40,000, then I'd have a lot more confidence in the information before you.
Well, at the end of the health and safety improvements, fence, marker boards, the rest of it, will we get a breakdown of actual costs incurred?
Yeah, so look, at the moment, the marker boards one is an indication as well, because that's our best guess. I can't see why we can't provide some of those numbers to you in terms of what we spent to get it up to the right safety standard.
No one I've talked to thinks you can build 1.2 kilometres of fencing for 30 grand. I mean, maybe you've got some deal, but it seems unrealistic, the new numbers, whereas the old numbers were maybe too far the other way. Seems like it's swinging around.
Yeah, and it all comes down to the design of the fence. So to build a fence that works the best it can, but also works in with the environment there, we've essentially got posts 5 metres apart, and we've got a fabricated sort of square mesh fence in between. So there's no battens. So that's a big cost saving. So the design of the fence that we're getting put up is part of the reason for that low cost. And yes, I have heard there's questions as to, is it too low? No, we have a firm quote from a reputable company doing the works for us, and that's what we've accepted.
And that design's been approved by the health and pilot recommendation, because I wonder the pilots will be able to see that fence with no battens, no top wooden railing there. Just going to be a whole lot of half rounds every 5 metres apart.
Yeah, so we've been working in with Mike Haynes and the CAA team. Rob, can you confirm that they're comfortable with where we're at in terms of the scope of works we're looking at doing?
Certainly, and through you, Madam Chair. The process that we've gone so far is where we're working with Mike Haynes and an aviation draftsman, and then those plans are then signed off effectively by CAA. So CAA is across it, and it's in keeping with CAA legislation. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Did that answer the question, Chris?
Yeah. How much does it cost to land on the Raglan Airfield at the moment?
Oh, I actually don't know. Is it a $10 fee or something, Rob? Do you know that exact number?
That was the number that came to mind, Roger. Yes, I believe that is the case.
And it's been the same for how long?
Don't know.
Because
a while, I assume.
Yeah, we recommended increasing that in the fees and charges review, and making it pegged towards the cost of the maintenance, but that seems to have also not been implemented. So it's just $10 again forever, or what?
Yeah, so it's not forever. I think this process has shown us the next available opportunity to review the fees. We will have a good look at that. Alison, are you able just to add to when that next opportunity is? It is an annual plan year, or is it the next time we do the full LTP?
So you can do it in an annual plan year. So we'll need to go through the process of understanding what a more reasonable charge would look like. So at the moment it is the $10. I'm just trying to see if I can find what we've proposed it would be in the following year. So if you bear with me, you carry on your meeting.
I kind of understood that when the LTP was happening, that there would be an opportunity to work further on the fees and charges. We were actually looking at the boat ramps at the time.
Yeah.
So I feel that's something we as a board need to actually follow through with. If there's an opportunity next year that we look at the airfield and the boat ramps and any other fees and charges. So it'd be good to know that, Alison. But I got that feeling from, I think it was through Megan.
There's a sentiment in the community that it needs to jump, like not just go up by $2 or $3 every year gradually. There needs to be a significant jump in the landing fee to represent the cost of maintaining it. Like $10 is a joke. It should be of an amount significant to maintain the costs of operating, and something like 100 or 50 would be much more realistic for the people flying in and out.
Yeah, look, I acknowledge those sentiments, Chris, and we'll take that away with whatever the next process and opportunity to review that is. I guess we do need to just remember it is a district-wide rate that does fund this, so it's not specifically the Raglan community that's being disadvantaged, but it's a good point you raise, and we need to have a good look at it.
Yeah, I think even though it's district-wide, Roger, it's something that the district-wide should be interested in, like having something which makes sense, ideally. So, yeah, it's not like there's heaps of people out in the district with heaps of money to pay for it and we don't have, and we're raising it. I think it's probably just something that's good to raise generally. Can I just, thanks, Chris, for raising your questions. Are there any other board members that want to raise any questions or speak on the airfield? Alison.
I've just checked the fees and charges document. So when we do our long-term plan, we actually set fees and charges for a 3-year period to try and cut down on the administration costs of the consultation process, etc. That doesn't mean you can't then reconsult in a particular year. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, for the current financial year we're in, the charge is actually $12. For the following year, it's $14, and the year after that, it's $16.
Yeah.
If you're a regular use group, then actually you're paying more like $650 a year, going up to $662, and then up to $675. So there's a little bit of a different regime. And if you don't pay your fees, there's a penalty of $23 on top of that. So that's what we'll need to work with.
Thanks, Alison. We were just looking at some other fees and charges, but yes, that's helpful to know. I think there's still the opportunity. Couple of questions I had for you, Roger, possibly, or whomever. Did the council know these costs when they made their decision?
No, they don't. They didn't know the specific costs.
Yeah, just a range or something.
Yeah, they're actually, a lot of them are farmers, so they actually know better than us the costs of fences and what the contractor quotes would likely come out to be based on the length of fence. But no, we didn't have the exact numbers for the councillors.
Yeah, okay. So it seems like it would be important, well, I'm assuming that the board would be interested to know once the works have been done and once you know what else you have in place in terms of the other things you're putting in place around the airfield. So it's not just physical, is it? There's also things about management and so forth. Mm-hmm. It would be quite good, I think, for that to come back to the board so that we actually understand what the ongoing costs are. So not just the mowing, but all of the ongoing costs, and even just to get a bit of a summary of what the project cost, considering our interest in it. And then maybe from there, that will help us think about whether we work on the fees and charges outside of the LTP, perhaps alongside the boat ramp and things.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty comfortable to, once we actually have completed all the recommendations, providing a bit of a tally up of it and the ongoing expected operational costs, where possible, where we don't breach any confidentiality with contractors, but yeah, absolutely, we'll do that.
So I understand the works, the fencing works are going to be over before Christmas, a couple of weeks?
Yeah, that's the intention. So we've suspended operations until the 20th of December. That's the, we don't expect it to take that long, but that's the window we've given ourselves from now till then. We'd like to think we might come in a few days earlier, but after the 20th, it should be open.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
In our discussions, there was talk about a small car park on the south-eastern midway point. Is that going to be implemented at any point for dog walkers and the like to relieve parking restraints down the other end?
At this point, it's you're talking about halfway along at Yeah, I think the team looked at doing that, and actually to formalise a car park there would have started costing quite a bit, and so the position has been to extend and formalise the car park down by Papahua entrance. So no, I don't think that is something that's on the cards at the moment. It's definitely not shown on the plan. Rob or Caleb, did you have anything to add to that one?
I can confirm that's what's on the plan and what's intended.
It was definitely looked into, Chris, but the cost of actually developing it and getting access to that area, etc., just started making the whole thing outside the scope of what we're considering at this point in time.
Lisa?
So just further to that, to Chris's point, Roger, just by the Papahua Camp entrance, is that going to be extended in this works, that area? I didn't know if it was or not.
My understanding is it is. Again, Caleb, Rob, you've seen the set out. Have they done any extension of that car park in towards the current airfield?
Yeah, good question. And through you, Madam Chair, at this point, what we're focusing on is keeping people safe, and that's first and foremost. And then the extension of that car park will be completed. Will that be completed before Christmas? That's going to depend on resources, but that will be included in the scope of work, yes.
Okay, that's great, because that was brought up by the Raglan Holiday Park Papahua Board for safety, for the extension of that for staff, particularly over the holiday season. So if we could get that done, if there was the resource, that would be really great.
Is that something, Rob, that you can, or Caleb, that you can find out about and give us an update on, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, last point, just on safety, what's being done to mitigate any risk at the end of both of the runway, where now obviously people will walk between the new fence and the existing fence. There'll be an illusion, I guess, of safety stamp for people who are just walking around and around the airfield that they might feel safe, inverted commas, at the end of the runway because they're inside the walking area. What are we doing to make sure people know that that is not a safe place to be during landing or takeoff of an aircraft?
Really good question, Chris. Thank you for that. Look, we treat both ends of the runway kind of like a road. It's somewhere that you need to look left, look right, and move through at an orderly pace rather than stopping in the middle. So we're developing some signage. So we're having a look at whatever the CAA has in terms of existing signage in those situations. And if we haven't got any standard signs that we can borrow from CAA, we'll be coming up with appropriate signage at the beginning of each of those. Depending on what side of the runway, there needs to be a sign in front of you saying stop, have a good look, and don't hang around in that runway space.
Don't stand there and look up and watch the planes go over.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay, I think some good questions asked there. And anything else from you, Dennis or Tony or Satnam, on either the airfield or the works and issues report? I suppose that includes the quarterly transport update as well. Dennis?
Yeah, just a question. It's not in the works and issues report, but we've discussed it before. Is the boat park